the garrison at Thornwall Pass had not been a real garrison for 11 years. It had been a real garrison once, 40 men, a cook, a flag that meant something. Now it was Edric Halst, 63 years old, one bad knee, and a set of walls that needed repointing more than he did. The Crown still paid him a small stipend to keep the gate log and report any unusual road traffic south through the pass. In 11 years, the unusual road traffic had consisted of a merchant's ox that wandered off in a snowstorm, and a traveling peddler who'd had too much to drink and confused the outpost for an inn. Edric kept the gate log. He repointed the mortar where he could reach it. He grew a small garden against the south wall where the wind didn't reach, and he made his own bread, and he was content enough. He did not think of himself as a lonely man. He thought of himself as a man who had found a quiet he had earned. That was the autumn before the orc woman appeared at his gate. She came up the south road at dusk, the last pale light of October sitting low over the ridge. Edric saw her from the watchtower and knew immediately she was not well. She was moving the way people move when they have been moving too long, the careful, deliberate placement of each step, the way the body argues with itself about whether to continue. She was tall, broad-shouldered, green-skinned, with dark braids matted with road dust, and she was carrying nothing but a rolled canvas pack that looked nearly empty. He watched her reach the gate and stop. Most travelers going through Thornwall didn't stop at the garrison. They knew it for a checkpoint, not a rest stop, and in recent decades most didn't bother with even that much. The road was technically open and Edric had no real authority to demand papers anymore. But she stopped, and she looked up at the gate, and then she looked at the log book nailed to the post beside it, the one that said THORNWALL Garrison, Crown Road Authority, and she stood there in the wind, reading it. Edric came down from the tower. He had heard things about the orc clans to the north, everyone had. Fierce, dangerous, not to be trusted. He had heard those things said about half the peoples he'd ever actually met in 40 years of garrison work, and what he'd learned in 40 years of garrison work was that hunger looked the same on everyone. He opened the gate. "You're welcome to come in out of the wind," he said. She looked at him. Her eyes were dark amber, wary as a hawk's, and she didn't move immediately. People who'd been turned away from enough doors learned not to trust an open one. "I'm not looking for charity," she said. Her voice was low, careful. "I only want to know if the south road through the pass is clear this time of year." "It's clear until the second week of November, usually," Edric said. "But it's 4 hours walk to the way station, and the way station closed 2 years ago. Come in and eat something first." She studied him another moment, then she walked through the gate. Her name was Vreth. She offered nothing else, and Edric didn't ask. He brought her to the kitchen building, the only structure he kept properly heated anymore, and set a pot of the bean and barley soup he'd made that morning on the iron range, and sliced bread, and poured 2 cups of black tea without asking if she wanted any. She sat at the table and watched him move around the kitchen with the watchfulness of someone who has learned to read whether a room is going to turn on them. It didn't turn on her. Edric sat down across the table and drank his tea, and after a moment she picked up hers. She ate carefully, not the way a person eats when they're embarrassed about being hungry, but the way a person eats when they've taught themselves to slow down because they've gone without enough times to know the stomach needs patience. Edric recognized that too. "How far north did you come from?" he asked, when she'd had most of the soup. "The Cathara Ridge," she said. 11 days. That was a long way on foot in autumn. Road trouble. There was trouble, she said, and didn't expand on it. She looked at him over the rim of her teacup. "You're the garrison here alone." 11 years, he said. She was quiet for a moment. Then something in her face settled, not warmth exactly, not yet, but a kind of recalibration. As if she had been holding herself at a specific readiness and had decided quietly that she could set some of it down. "The trouble on the North Road," she said, "is a raider company called the Ironjaw Band. About 60 men, maybe more now. They've been working the orc settlements in the Cathara foothills for 2 seasons, taking stores, burning what they can't carry. They move south when the snow starts. They were 3 days behind me when I left the ridge. Edric set down his cup. He was quiet for a moment, doing the arithmetic of 3 days and 11 days travel and the pass road south. They know about the garrison. They know there's a checkpoint. They don't know what strength. Edric said nothing. He got up and ladled more soup into her bowl without comment, and she let him, and they sat with that information between them while the wind moved around the walls outside. He gave her the second room, the one he used for storage, and cleared enough space for the folding cot he kept rolled in the corner. He gave her 2 blankets and the spare lamp, and told her the outhouse was around the back of the south wall. She thanked him in a voice that was still careful but less so than it had been. In the morning she was gone before he'd lit the kitchen range. She had left the blankets folded on the cot. She had left 4 copper coins on the table beside the lamp, far more than the meal and the cot were worth, and she had left a single line written on the bottom of his gate log, in a clear, small hand. The iron jaw band marks its wagons with a red-painted wheel. Watch for outriders first. Edric read it twice. He put the coins in the garrison fund tin. He thought about the 1-line report he was supposed to send to the Crown Road office once a month, and about the Crown Road office's consistent record of responding to his reports after a lag of between 6 and 10 weeks. He looked at the garrison walls. That afternoon he inventoried what he had. 1 crossbow, functional, 40 bolts, a smoke signal kit which he was fairly sure was still good, his personal knife which he kept sharp, the walls themselves which were stone and which were, he walked the perimeter solid enough where it counted, whatever the mortar said. He had no illusions about 60 armed men. He was one old soldier with a bad knee and a crossbow, but he had spent 40 years in garrison work, and the one thing garrison work had taught him above everything else was that a gate log mattered, that the recording of things, the holding of a post, meant something beyond the individual holding it. He was not going to close the gate and hide. He sent the smoke signal north, toward the ridge. He didn't know if anyone would read it. He didn't know who was up there to read it. He thought about the orc woman's careful handwriting in his gate log and the amber wariness of her eyes, and he sent it anyway. Then he went back inside and made bread, because there was nothing else to do, and because 40 years had taught him that the best thing to do before trouble arrived was to make sure you'd eaten. The outriders came 2 nights later, before dawn, 3 of them, moving quiet on the south road, red-wheeled wagon tracks in the mud behind them. Edric watched them from the tower with the crossbow across his knees and did not move. They circled the garrison once, saw the light in the kitchen window, saw the flag, the old flag, the Crown garrison flag he kept flying out of habit, and they rode back north. The column would know now what they were looking at. 1 old man, 1 flag, walls that needed repointing. He thought, for the first time in years, that he might genuinely be in difficulty. The sound woke him 3 hours before dawn, not the sound of the raiders. A different sound. Feet on the ridge road, many of them, moving with the particular cadence of people who know where they're going. He was on the tower before he was fully awake, crossbow in hand, and he looked north along the ridge road, and what he saw stopped him completely. There were torches, dozens of them, strung out along the high road coming down off the Cathara ridge, and in their light he could see the shapes of orc warriors moving at a ground-eating march pace, carrying the long-hafted axes and the broad shields of the northern clan militia. At their head, carrying no torch, needing none, was a tall figure with dark braids and a purposeful stride he recognized. Vreth walked through the garrison gate without knocking. "How many came?" Edric asked when she reached the tower steps. 83, she said. "We move fast in cold weather." She looked at him, at the crossbow, at the flag, at the single lit window in the kitchen below. "You stayed." "It's my post," he said. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she put her hand briefly on his shoulder, just once briefly, the way one soldier acknowledges another, and she turned to organize her people. The Iron Jaw Band came at first gray light, as raider companies preferred, the moment when the sky was light enough to move but dark enough to confuse, and they came at the north wall with 2 wagons as rams and 60-odd men on foot behind them. They met 83 orc warriors who had had 3 hours to prepare and who were defending a wall they had decided, for their own reasons, was worth defending. It was not a long fight. Raider companies are built for terror and speed, not for sustained resistance, and the resistance they met at Thornwall Garrison that morning was neither fast nor slow. It was simply immovable. The wagon rams never reached the gate. The men on foot did not breach the wall. When the sun was fully up above the eastern ridge, the Iron Jaw Band was in retreat north, and the garrison walls, which needed repointing but were, as it turned out, solid enough where it counted, were intact. Edric sat on the watchtower steps in the pale morning light, and thought about nothing in particular for a while. Vreth found him there. She sat down beside him on the steps, which were not really built for 2 people, and for a while neither of them said anything. Below, in the garrison yard, her warriors were seeing to their own, calm and efficient, and someone had found the kitchen and was producing a smell of wood smoke and heated tea that Edric found deeply reassuring. "Why?" he asked finally. "You'd already cleared the pass. You were safe south." Vreth was quiet for a moment. "You left the gate open," she said. "You didn't ask what I was. You didn't ask what had happened on the north road. You just asked if I wanted more soup." She looked at the wall, at the south wall, where the garden was, where the last of his autumn cabbages were still standing. "In 11 years," she said, "you are the first garrison keeper who opened that gate." Edric thought about that. 11 years is a long time to find a locked gate, he said. "Yes," she said, "it is." The Crown Road office received his report, a thorough one, the most detailed he had written in 11 years, 6 weeks later. They sent back a letter acknowledging the engagement and nodding that reinforcements would be considered for the following spring, contingent on budget review. Edric filed the letter in the garrison log. What the Crown Road office did not know, and what the budget review would not account for, was that by the time the letter arrived, Thornwall Garrison had already been repointed, from foundation to parapet, by a team of 8 orc masons who had come down from the Cathara Ridge with mortar tools and who had declined to be paid. The kitchen garden had been expanded along the south wall and planted with 3 varieties of cold-weather root vegetables Edric had never grown before. A second lamp hung in the watchtower. The gate log had a new cover, stitched in dark leather, with THORNWALL Garrison pressed into it in clean block letters. And once a month, regular as the road allowed, a tall woman with dark braids appeared on the south road at dusk and stopped at the gate, and the gate was open, and there was soup on the range, and 2 cups of tea already poured. The garrison at Thornwall Pass had not been a real garrison for 11 years. It was one now,